Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming you guys. Welcome back. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone online as well. We're going to start our morning with meditation like we do each morning. We're going to do loving kindness meditation where we first start with chanting. Then there's the breathing mindfulness meditation, the loving kindness meditation, back to breathing mindfulness, and then coming out with chanting. I have a question for you guys. Are you comfortable doing the breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation on your own? You guys okay? Yeah? Okay. This will be good because then you guys will get a chance to do it without guidance because that's what you need to be able to do. Because remember, with the breathing mindfulness bit, so first, after the chanting, do just about 3 minutes, 5 minutes of breathing mindfulness where you're focused on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and bring it back. And then after about 3 to 5 minutes of that, just within your own mind, keeping track of that, then you go to those rings, right? And you would like to customize the rings. So probably start with, you would like to start with I and end with all beings, but then you'd probably like to start with like mom and dad. That's usually a good place to start. And then maybe some friends or family that you have loving kindness for, but then ultimately get to a few people where your mind does have anger, or groups of people. Sometimes people maybe have hatred towards police officers or lawyers or politicians or something like this. You can even use groups of people if you like, and then ultimately get to all beings, and then go back to breathing mindfulness where you're cutting off and letting go, and then we'll come out with the chanting. So I'll do the chanting in and the chanting out, but you do the meditation in the middle. Okay? Yep. Yep. Mhm. Yeah, what this is for your mind. So if you have anger or hatred in your mind towards those people that have died, so that would be the first ring or two, right? Because you'd like to bubble up the loving kindness, but ultimately what you're working on in this loving kindness meditation is getting rid of any anger, hatred, and ill will, and even the lesser versions. So ultimately you'd like to add some rings in of people that you do have resentment and hostility toward, because but you can use those rings that you just talked about to bubble up some of the loving kindness so it kind of spills over into that group. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just do the chanting in and out, and you guys do your own meditations. Okay. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Damang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawakasangko Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manu Sarang Oto Pakawati. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to everyone. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today's class, what I'm going to be doing is sharing with you guys multiple topics like I do each day. Today, we're going to be talking about how to eliminate fears, helping you guys to understand how to do that, because by the time you get to enlightenment, there isn't any fear in the mind, that you wouldn't be fearful of heights or spiders or snakes or your own death even. So I'm going to teach you how to eliminate your fears, because you can actually go in and eliminate your individual fears. So I'm going to explain that to you and help you understand how to accomplish that. Then after our mid-morning break, the topic after that is going to be about this being of God. Sometimes people think that the Buddha never taught about this being of God, but it's actually not true. He did teach about this being. He just didn't make this being a focal point of his teachings, because it's not this being that determines whether someone gets to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine this. So what I'm going to do is help you to understand how to get to enlightenment, either with a relationship with this being of God or without a relationship with this being, because you can get to enlightenment regardless of what you decide. But there's things that you need to understand whether you're going to have a relationship with this being or not, to make sure that you're able to make your way to enlightenment. Then this afternoon, we have the topic of meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. Sometimes people on their journey to enlightenment, they have really high sexual craving and they need to knock that down. So there's a meditation that the Buddha taught to be able to help you knock down your sexual craving so it's not so strong, right? And then ultimately, by the time someone gets to enlightenment, they will eliminate that. And this meditation can be used for that too. So as we go, just like always, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. We have microphones here in the white bowl if you guys would like to ask any questions, because that way the people online will be able to hear you. So feel free to get a microphone and ask any questions that you like. And then for those of you guys online, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can ask your questions by putting that into the comment section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions by unmuting your microphone. So first, to understand about elimination of fears, I need to just remind you of something I taught on Monday, is that you need to be able to understand what's causing these fears, because that way you'll understand the solution of how to fix it, because you can't understand how to solve a problem if you don't understand what's causing it. So if you remember back to Monday when I was teaching the three universal truths of impermanence, discontentedness, and non-self, the Buddha is helping you to understand how the world is, that the world's constantly changing, that the unenlightened mind is experiencing these conditioned feelings, that based on some condition it's going to experience these feelings. And then there's this universal truth of non-self, which is helping you to solve the personal existence view and eliminating that. Then we talked about craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection, right? This is that wants and expectations that the mind has. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind thinks something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. So this is an aspect of the mind where the mind is pulling in the direction towards the objects of its affection. Then we talked about the Four Noble Truths, where I helped you to be able to independently verify what's actually causing your discontent feelings. Because remember, getting to enlightenment is to eliminate anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You can eliminate all these feelings through training of the mind, but you need to know what's causing these. So that's why the very first teaching of the Buddha, he starts you out with understanding what's causing these feelings, because oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings. You might think it's your mom and dad that are frustrating you, or your brothers and sisters are annoying you, or your boss is somehow making you angry. This isn't actually true. It's one's own mind that's causing this. And in the Four Noble Truths, which you can independently verify, you can see this. The first noble truth, the Buddha is helping you to understand that all unenlightened beings are going to experience discontentedness, those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. The cause of these feelings is craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. If the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way when you live in an impermanent world. So, for example, if you get together with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might be really happy and excited about that because you're getting affection, you're going out to the movies, to dinner, maybe you're going to the park, having great conversations, maybe you're having sexual contact. There's all these pleasant feelings related to that because the mind's getting what it wants. But then when you guys break up, the mind might be angry or sad or frustrated or lonely or bored, or you might be missing this person. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent, when in reality, this relationship is impermanent. It's not the love that's causing this. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is an active goodwill towards all beings. That doesn't actually cause painful feelings, but oftentimes people think it's their love or their care because you're really close with this person, but your mind is grabbed on and it's craving permanence. You can see this if like grandma or grandpa or other people have died. When people die, what's happening is the mind is just experiencing impermanence, that the mind's not getting what it wants. As long as grandma or grandpa are alive, the mind's happy. But then when they die, the mind's angry or frustrated or sad or sorrowful. This is just impermanence. All that's happened is change. That because grandma and grandpa were born, they have to die, just like every single one of us. You can see this in more simple examples. It doesn't involve relationships. Like if it's sunny outside, someone might get really happy or excited, but then when it rains, they'll get frustrated or irritated or annoyed. The only thing that's happened there is change. That's it. The mind is just craving permanence, and it's basing its inner feelings on the sun. But the sun is not permanent, so therefore your happiness isn't permanent either. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's it. So here you can see it's not the outside world that's causing these feelings because there's nobody else involved. It's just the sun going from sun to rain. That's all it is. And it's going from the bank account balance from here to here. It's just impermanence, that the mind doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, that everything around you is constantly changing. So the mind's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So one of the ways to say this is, yes, that the mind craves permanence, but another way to say this is that the mind doesn't like impermanence. It doesn't like change. You can look at your own life to verify this. Look at all the situations where you were the most discontent and your mind was shaken up. It was when you were experiencing change. You were changing living locations, you were changing jobs, you were changing relationships. These were the times where your life was the most challenging and most difficult. You can even take a recent situation where you've been irritated or annoyed or angry or frustrated or sad to be able to see this for yourself, where maybe it was this morning or yesterday or last week where you were having some discontent feelings. You can look at that situation and see, what was your mind longing for? What were you yearning for? What was the craving? That if you would have got what you wanted and you expected, you would have been happy or excited about that. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted, you were angry or sad or frustrated. You should be able to see this, and if you can't, let me know and I will help you, because I've had plenty of students over the years that have asked questions and asked to be able to understand this, because they had maybe challenges to be able to see that it was their own mind that was causing these feelings. This is where you can have a real breakthrough, because if you go around the world continuing to believe that it's other people that are causing you to be angry, you'll never solve your anger, because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up pushing people away, or you'll try to push the situation away. This is called aversion. The mind's acting unskillfully. It thinks the problem is external, so you might have pushed away friends and family out of your life, thinking that that's going to solve your problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem, because you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get annoyed. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, feeling justified in your anger and your hostility and your bitterness. But now you're just damaging your relationships, because you can't live harmoniously with all people because the mind can only be peaceful if people do things your way. That's the way the mind thinks in the unenlightened state. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people and try to control people and pressure them to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too. They might be pushing you away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and putting their expectations on you and trying to pressure you to do things their way. This is the mind craving permanence, thinking that everybody should do things exactly the same way in the world. And the mind's ego thinks my way is the right way. And if people do it my way, I like that. And I'm happy about that. But when people don't do things my way, that's where the mind gets angry or frustrated. So you need to be able to see this, that that's what's causing these discontent feelings, is the craving, the desire, the wanting permanence while you live in an impermanent world. Then there's the third noble truth, where the Buddha explains to you that you can eliminate these discontent feelings by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment. If you can understand that the cause of these feelings is craving, desire, attachment, that longing, yearning, chasing things, thinking that some external thing is going to provide lasting satisfaction and craving permanence, if you can understand that's the cause of the problem, then you can understand the way to eliminate it is to eliminate the cause. If you eliminate the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, yearning, the chasing, wanting things to be permanent, then you can eliminate your discontent feelings. And then the way to do that is called the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that I taught on Monday, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else integrates into, where you can see the way to actually train your mind on a daily, consistent basis to be able to eliminate this longing, yearning, and basing your inner feelings on some external thing, where you're no longer craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So before I go further, I'm just going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on this kind of just a little refresh, a little summary. I know some of you guys weren't here on Monday when I was teaching this, and that's fine. If you guys have questions on anything I shared, let me know, because sometimes it's challenging for people to be able to see this. I usually take about 45 minutes to walk through this, but I was just interested in giving a little refresher, especially since there's some people here that weren't here on Monday. So do you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths and what's causing your discontent feelings? And if you can't see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, let me know, because you need to be able to see that in order to even be able to make any kind of progress or have any kind of understanding of what the Buddha is actually teaching you. Because what he's teaching you is to train your mind to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state. He's not teaching you to believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die. He's also not teaching rules and commandments that if everybody follows these rules and commandments, and the world will become a peaceful place. He's teaching you how to go within and train your mind and heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to know what's hurting you is within your own mind. It's not the outside world. So if you don't see that it's this craving, desire, attachment, let me know, because I will help you, and then you'll be able to see it, and then you can build on top of that all the other things that the Buddha has to share with you. So is there any questions here or online that you guys would like to ask? No questions here? Okay, let me see if we have anything online. All right. Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, so now, by the way, this is the Eightfold Path. This is what I taught on Monday, where I walked students all the way through each individual factor of this, breaking down it into wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. But now I'm going to talk about fear. What's causing the fear is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be permanent, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. So you need to be able to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment. So for example, if I was afraid of spiders, that means I have a craving for permanence. I never want to see a spider. But when there's this spider, the mind's like, the spider, it's going to hurt me, right? Or whatever the mind's thinking, right? There's a craving for permanence, that you never want to see a spider. That's the permanence that the mind's craving. And now when it sees a spider, the mind gets all shaken up. And when the mind's all shaken up with this fear, you can't make wise decisions. And you're going to make unwise decisions that's going to lead to unwholesome results. So oftentimes what people do when they have a fear is they try to push this thing aside in order to think that that's going to solve the problem. So like, for example, if someone was afraid of large crowds, they'll think, I'm never going around large crowds. I'm never going to go around a large crowd. The mind tries to push it away, but it doesn't actually solve the problem, because inside the mind, you still have a craving, desire, attachment. You're longing, yearning to just be around a couple of people. That's the permanence that the mind's craving. But now you're walking through some city, you're on holiday or vacation or what have you, and now you turn the corner, and next thing you know, you're in the middle of a big political protest, and you've got thousands of people around you, and you're like, oh, and you're scared because you have this craving in your mind. So it actually doesn't solve your problem to just try to push away the fact that I'm never going to see a spider, or I'm never going to be around a large crowd, because these cravings, desires, attachments in your mind, it's like the mind is pulling in all these different directions. It's like carrying around a burden in your mind. This is part of those pollutions that we talked about that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And now when your mind has all this pollution, all this craving in your mind's very congested, and it has difficulties having focus, concentration, clarity, and memory. You have difficulties performing in day-to-day life because you're carrying around all these burdens of all these pollutions of cravings, and your mind's pulling in all these different directions. So you need to be able to uproot all of this, purify the mind, and get it out of the mind. So there's a solution for this. When you understand what your fears are, you can actually place your mind in the situation that it fears in order to desensitize it and get rid of the craving, desire, attachment. So for example, if I was afraid of large crowds, I'm never going to solve that problem by pushing it away and just choosing not to go around large crowds, because someday you're going to be around a large crowd. Or I'm never going to eliminate the fear of spiders by just trying to avoid spiders, because someday you're going to see spiders. So what you do is, because the mind is only comfortable when it doesn't see a spider, you're going to actually need to train it to be comfortable when it sees spiders. So you're going to need to look at spiders. You're going to need to get magazines or internet pictures and start scrolling through these and start looking at them. And when you're looking at these things, you're going to need to cut off and let go of any discontentedness. As the fear is coming up, you're going to need to let it go and let it go. That's what you learn as part of the Eightfold Path. That's why the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching. But now, as you've trained your mind to a certain degree with the Eightfold Path, you expose it to the stimulus that it is fearing. So in this example, the spiders, you look at some magazines, and you might do that over 2, 3, 4 sessions. And now you get to a point where you can look at the spiders and you don't have any fear. Where initially when you started looking at the spiders, you noticed this fear coming up. Okay, so now once you've done that for 2 or 3 times and you notice there's no fear, you need to increment the stimulation. Now you need to maybe go to like a museum where they have spiders preserved. They're not alive, but they still got those little hairs. They still got those little eyes, right? And you're just looking at them. And now you notice the fear's coming up and you cut that off and you cut that off and you cut that off. And you do this maybe 2 or 3 times. And now, once you're comfortable with that, go into a situation like maybe a zoo or a pet store or outside in the woods, and now start looking for spiders and start looking at real live spiders crawling around and stuff like this. And again, when this fear is coming up, you cut it off and cut it off and cut it off. And you need to remind yourself of the natural law of gamma, of cause and effect, or action and result. You need to be able to see very clearly this natural law that when you're practicing harmlessness, where you're not causing harm, there's no harm that's going to come to you. But when you practice harmfulness, where you're causing harm to other beings, this harm will come back to you. Now, you just heard me say that you can't cause people to be discontent. Like, people can't cause you to be discontent. You can't cause other people to be discontent. People might blame you for their anger, their frustration. You're not causing that, just like they aren't causing your anger. But you can cause beings harm. Causing a being harm would be to cause harm to their material possessions, to their physical body, or to their reputation. And whenever you're causing harm to a living being, harm is going to come back to you. And you can see this very simply right now. Like right now, when you're listening to me, you're just sitting here listening to me. You're not causing harm to anybody. You're not causing harm to anyone's physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation. And that's why no harm is coming to you. This is a natural law. But if you were to poke the person in the eyes that's next to you, there's probably going to be some harm that comes to you, right? Someone's going to slap your hand, or who knows what might happen, right? That's because you're not causing harm, and now harm's going to come back to you. You need to be able to see in your day-to-day life that when you're experiencing unwholesome results, it's coming from decisions that you're making. Again, what people tend to do is they blame other people for the things that they're experiencing that are unwholesome, but it's coming from decisions that you're making. And when you have a lack of wisdom in this natural law, you'll tend to go out into the world and make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results. So when you're looking at those spiders, you need to be able to remind yourself that you're not causing any harm to those spiders. And that's why no harm is coming to you. You're just looking at a spider crawling around on the ground. And that spider, because it's an animal and it can't get to enlightenment, it most likely has fear in its mind when it sees you, and when it hears you walking, or it feels the vibration or whatever. It's probably scared of you, and that's why it's running away from you, right? So that spider actually has fear in its mind, because animals can't eliminate their fear. It's not possible. But a human being can actually eliminate their fear. You have the ability to do this, where you can get completely free of all your fears. So this is an example with spiders, right? We can talk about heights. If you are afraid of heights, it's the same thing, that you need to gradually desensitize yourself to the fear of heights, because someone might think that they're just going to avoid this and they're never going to go up on high positions. But someday you're going to step into an elevator and you're not paying attention, and somebody hits a button. Next thing you know, you're on the 32nd floor of an office building. And now you're all shaken up by that. Your mind's got this fear, right? So you're going to be wise to eliminate this craving, desire, attachment by putting your mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in. So maybe you go to a mall that has multiple stories, and you start out on the first floor, right? And then maybe you go up to the second floor and you kind of look over the railing and you're like, okay, you kind of feel the fear a little bit. You cut that off, maybe go up to the third floor. Okay, this is enough. This is all I can do today. But you just kind of look, and now maybe a week later or so, you come back and you go back up to the third floor, and you go up a little bit higher and higher, and slowly but surely you desensitize your mind to this, even to the point where you can climb ladders and all kinds of other things. And over multiple sessions, you can desensitize yourself to this fear of heights. So no matter what it is, whether it's a large crowd or spiders or snakes or heights or what have you can actually put your mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in and train it to be comfortable in that situation. Even something like the fear of death. If you have the fear of death, there's a way for you to put your mind in that situation without actually killing yourself. Okay? Because oftentimes people have a fear of dying. And the reason why is because they're craving permanence. They're either craving permanent life and they're holding on to this life and they don't want to let go, or they're craving permanent comfort of the body and the idea of dying and experiencing physical pain, that their mind doesn't like that. So they're fearful of that. So you're going to need to desensitize your mind to this fear of death. And the way that you do it is doing something that the Buddha taught called contemplation of death or reflection of death. What you do is you sit quietly, closing your eyes for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, and you imagine in your mind that you've actually died. You're not aspiring to die. You're not wanting to die. You're just kind of playing this out in your mind as if you have died. It's like you convince yourself that you've died, like you're a fly on the wall. Maybe you got in a terrible car accident. Maybe you've had a terminal illness that over the course of multiple years, you've gradually died. Whatever it is, you play this out in your mind. And maybe you play out doctors or police officers talking to your family and informing them that you've died. And then you kind of are like a fly on the wall watching that occur. And now maybe they're organizing a funeral or a burial or a cremation or things like this. Maybe they're even grieving. And you're playing all this out in your mind. And then you just follow it all the way through. And you might even start grieving yourself. You might even be sorrowful while you're doing this. But then what you would like to do is cut that off and let it go. Train the mind to let go of that. Any kind of fear or sorrow that's coming up, you like to cut that off and let it go. And then you wait about a month or so and you do it again. And you keep doing this until you get to the point where there's no sadness, there's no sorrow, there's no fear of death, that you've confronted it. Because death is going to come visit every single one of us. None of us are going to live forever. Death is going to come visit all of us. And typically what people do is they try to push this away. They don't even want to think about dying, right? But then when you get close to death, it's like sneaking up on you. Like, boom, there it is. Hey, you're going to die, right? You got 4 more days to live, or you got 3 more weeks, or you got 3 more months, or 2 more years. What? Here it is. Whoa, now you're shocked, and now you're fearful. Now you're experiencing all kinds of painful feelings because you allowed it to sneak up on you. So death is waiting for us over there in the corner. It's going to come visit every single one of us. And what this contemplation of death is you're like, yeah, I see you over there, death. You're coming to visit me. But you know what? I'm going to come visit you. I'm going to come get comfortable with you. I'm going to come sit with you and I'm going to look at you and I'm going to kind of play this out in my mind. And now I'm going to get comfortable with you. So when you do come to visit me, I'm already familiar with you, right? We've already been there, done that kind of thing. So this contemplation of death or reflection of death is a way for you to confront death, get comfortable with it, evaluate it, understand it, realize it's going to happen, and now you can get comfortable with it and you don't have to fear death any longer. So this is the way that you can eliminate your fear of death. So this is a really short teaching to be able to teach you how to go in and almost surgically remove your cravings, desires, attachments that are producing these fears, because you know what you're afraid of, you know what fears you have in your mind, and you're going to need to come up with a way of actually confronting this. So let me stop and see if you guys have any questions about how to do this, and then we'll take it to the next step after this. So it looks like there's some questions coming in. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have 2 questions. The first one is you mentioned 5 realms of existence yesterday.
Said what?
5 realms of existence.
Oh, yes.
One of them is afflicted spirits,
mm-hmm.
which is ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm afraid that because you mentioned they are in the same space as us, and will they come to hurt us? Because sometimes we watch the scary movie and they have the ghost image, and I felt so scary when I watched the scary movie. Mm-hmm. So will they come to hurt us?
If you're not causing harm, there's no harm that's going to come to you. This is the natural law of karma. So these ghosts have the ability to do things, but you're not going to experience any harm. I have never experienced any harm from a ghost. I've seen ghosts before, but I've never experienced any harm from them. I've seen on TV where people have shown where they've been scratched or pushed or things like that, but I've never experienced any of that stuff for myself. So I can't say with 100% certainty that they are able to do those kinds of things. But if you're not causing any harm, there's no harm that's going to come to you, that it's not possible for any harm to come to you.
Okay. And my
Are
second
you
question.
afraid of ghosts?
Yeah, because of the scary movies and yeah, due to the movies. Yeah. And the second one is we all have all types of fears in our life. And do we need to desensitize all of them? Like we fear to lose our job, we fear to death, or maybe I also fear to take a flight when it gets turbulent. So do we need to remove all of the fears?
Yes. You won't get to enlightenment as long as there's fear in the mind, because there's still craving, desire, attachment. The mind's still holding on. So when you're in a situation like turbulence, right, you would like to be able to train your mind that there's nothing to fear here. There could be the fear of the shaking up. There could be the fear of death, right? So that's where contemplation of death is going to help you in that situation where there's turbulence, where you just kind of accept like, okay, well, if this is it, this is it. Right. But if you're craving permanent life or you're craving permanent comfort of the body, you won't be comfortable with this death that you're going to experience. So you're going to need to eliminate every single fear. And if you have a lot of them, you're going to need to do a lot of these. But that's where you need to be able to get the Eightfold Path up and running first and really be practicing that for an extended time. Because as you're starting to go in and expose the mind to these situations, you'd like to be able to regain your composure relatively quickly. Whereas if somebody wasn't doing breathing mindfulness meditation regularly and all the other teachings of the Buddha, if they do the contemplation of death, their mind could have some fear for 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 days. Their mind's shaken up from that contemplation of death. But if you've got a regular practice of the Eightfold Path well underway, you might do the contemplation of death, and in a number of hours or maybe a day or two, you can regain your composure where the fear won't be in there any longer. So that's why I make sure that people have understood the Eightfold Path and that they understand that that's what you need to be able to practice first before you do something like this. Yeah, and it's not like this is dangerous or anything. It's just that you'd like to be able to regain your composure relatively quickly.
Yeah. So I have a question about the fear of death, and it's like the meditation feels like a rehearsal, like to train our mind to facing the death. But when the death real come, how the mind will be, how the state of the mind will be look like, we don't know, right? Because no one know how. I don't know like how it's feeling. Oh, maybe people knows how it's a feeling after death. But is this rehearsal really able to capture or like be well prepared or prepare us to facing the death, or it's like when we go to the death and the state will be completely changed, or our mind or state will be completely changed, and it will be, oh, surprise, oh, I didn't prepare for this state, oh, what should I do? Still a lot of fear coming. Just curious.
If you train your mind to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment for permanent life and permanent comfort and stuff like this, you can get to the point where you eliminate your fear of death, and you'll be able to see this is the case because when things are happening around you during your life, you'll be able to see that you've eliminated your fear of death. So like, for example, like if you had a fear of death and you went to cross the road and all of a sudden like you were looking this way, but the traffic was actually coming from this way, and you mistakenly stepped out in the middle of the road and it's like, whoa, and you got to step back, you'll notice that there's no fear there where prior there was fear. Or like say you almost get in a car accident and now normally there would be fear, and you can see like, oh, there's no fear. So there'll be different situations throughout the course of your life where previous to training your mind this way, there would be fear that will arise in that situation, where now after you've trained your mind in this way, there won't be any fear. So you'll know that by the time you get to the death, there's not any fear in your mind. You're completely comfortable with it. So you can get to the point where you know with 100% certainty that you don't have any fear of death. But right now, if somebody's just learning this for the first time and they haven't done it yet, there's occasional times where people are like, oh yeah, I'm not afraid of death. But then when they really look at it, they really are afraid of death and they haven't actually done this before. So you need to be objective with your mind and make sure that you expose your mind to this kind of training so that you can be sure that you get rid of the craving for permanent life or permanent comfort. And then you observe your mind with that mindfulness. That's what this Eightfold Path is teaching you, is this mindfulness, this awareness of mind all throughout your day. You're practicing awareness of mind so that at any point in time you're in a situation where you would potentially have fear, you can see there's no fear there. So for example, say you're at some event and you didn't even know that they were lighting off fireworks. And next thing you know, 30 feet away, there's this big blast of fireworks. And normally you would jump and you would be afraid, but no, you're not even afraid. And you're like, oh, okay, I see, my mind has gotten rid of that fear. Right. So you can observe your mind with this. I was in Mexico end of last year. Someone had asked me to come there to share some teachings, and we were in a taxi cab and we were sitting in the back, and the taxi driver locked the door. So it was like, Doom! It was really loud, and this person jumped. It's a female that brought me to Mexico, and she was curious why I didn't jump. She was asking me like, you're not afraid, like why didn't you jump? And it's just impermanence. That's all it was. It was quiet in the car, and then next thing you know, he just hit the button. It was like, Joom! And he just locked the doors. But she jumped, and she was fearful of that. Apparently, she had some previous experiences in situations like that, because that's what happens with your mind, is that it'll hold on to an experience. That's one of the reasons why this fear is there. It's the craving, desire, attachment, or clinging. So let me give you guys another example. I know you guys might have more questions, but let me give you some more examples, and you can see more about how you eliminate your fear. Say you were in a terrible car accident, and say that you were even in the hospital for multiple weeks because you were in this terrible car accident. And now when you come home from the hospital and you're driving in the car, of course, you're in the passenger seat, someone else is driving you, but you have all this overwhelming fear of being in the car. That's because you had a certain experience in the past where your mind has been conditioned to think that riding in a car equals pain, and I'm going to be in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks recovering from this. So the mind is clinging to this experience, and now it's fearful going out in the car. Or say you were walking down the street and you got beat up by someone wearing a green jacket. So now every time you see someone with a green jacket, you have this fear that comes up in your mind because the mind's clinging to this experience. This is the permanence and the clinging that the mind does. So there's ways for you to be able to eliminate these fears. You don't need to keep walking around with your mind conditioned to think that someone in a green jacket means I'm going to get hurt, or riding in a car means that this body is going to get painful experiences or end up in the hospital. So you need to uncondition the mind. That's what it is to train your mind on the path to enlightenment, is to purify it and uncondition it. So it's no longer holding on to these experiences and creating feelings today based on things that happened in the past. Some people call this trauma and they think that it's permanent, but it's actually not. It's just an experience that you had in the past that your mind is still clinging to today. And you can train your mind to let go of that and no longer form feelings today based on something that happened to you in the past. So you'll be able to observe your mind and you'll be able to see, the mind doesn't have any fear in this situation anymore. As you've trained your mind, now you'll live the rest of your life without any fear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome.
So, is it like I know, like now we're talking about fear, and I want to know if just when we did the meditation, I think of someone I dislike. So can it be applied to someone I like? If I dislike that person, so does that mean like I have to go to meet this person more often to desensitize this dislikeness?
So if you have a person that has been in your life in the past and you have anger and hatred towards them, right? You know that that's coming from your own mind, right? That's coming from your craving, your desire. There's permanence there, right? That anger and hatred isn't coming from the other person. So the loving kindness meditation is going to get rid of that anger and hatred and ill will. If there was some fear that you had in that situation, you need to look and evaluate what the fear is and then figure out how to eliminate it. But it doesn't mean you have to go back to actually see that person in order to be able to eliminate your fear, because you can do some of this work, just by doing it inside your mind. If this person was in your life and it's somebody that you're still in a relationship with, you could do that. But sometimes there are situations like, say, someone was sexually abused and they're not interested in ever seeing that person ever again. Okay, I understand. But you still need to train your mind to eliminate the anger, hatred, and ill will and any fear. But you can do that without going back to revisit that person. It's possible for you to do that.
Thank you. Actually, when we did the loving kindness meditation, I try to think to wish this person well, but then all that memories and things, and I kind of like, I cannot do this anymore. And then I stop, and then I go back to do the breathing meditation.
Perfect.
Yeah, it seems like to me it's like a long way to go there. Yeah, because like I couldn't finish even. Yeah.
That's the way that some of this works. Is so the breathing mindfulness meditation at the end of your loving kindness meditation, that's what it's there for, is because sometimes it bubbles up memories of things that happened in the past when you're doing the loving kindness meditation, and the mind can become angry. Right. And now what you do is you use that breathing mindfulness meditation at the end to cut that off and let it go. So it's kind of like taking off a Band-Aid sometimes when you're trying to get rid of this anger towards people from your past, where you kind of start pulling it and it gets really painful and you kind of have to stop and not take off the Band-Aid yet, and then so you need to be able to do this slowly but surely. So there's no need to force the mind or push the mind or pressure the mind. So that was wise. If you came up to a certain point where you felt like, okay, this is enough for today, and then you back off of that. And then the next time you, again, come up to that point and maybe try to go beyond it a little bit. And then if you need to back off, then you back off. And then next time you go a little bit further and a little bit further. That's the way you'll be able to gradually train your mind to let this go. And then you have that breathing mindfulness meditation to cut off and let go of any anger that had come up during the meditation.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir.
Talk about fear. I remember last time we talked about when you see a tiger or a lion, there's fear, so you run away to avoid being killed. So to me, like fear is kind of like a protection mechanism for human beings or even for animals to avoid being hurt or being killed. So when you talk about seeing a spider or a snake, maybe that's because our instinct to run away because we don't want to get bite by a spider, which may cause death to people. So if we eliminate all the fears in my mind, will that be like getting us in trouble because we don't fear those things, or even there's a car coming and we don't fear about get to the death?
The short answer to your question is no, but let me give you more details, okay? So as an animal, that's what we were talking about. An animal has fear, right? An animal can't move to a higher consciousness where they cultivate enough wisdom to make wise decisions in any particular situation. They operate through that fear. That's kind of like a basic survival instinct for an animal, right? The unenlightened human being functions very much like an animal, but we're not animals. We're human beings. We're very different than an animal. We can actually evolve and we can cultivate our consciousness to get to this enlightened mental state where we have a higher consciousness. So while an unenlightened being their mind will function like an animal, that when they have fear, they will run. But that fear is shaking up the mind, and now you're going to make unwise decisions. What the Buddha is teaching you to be able to do is get rid of the causes and conditions that are producing the fear, but now you make wise decisions in order to make sure that you're experiencing wholesome results or wholesome karma. So whenever you operate through fear, your mind's shaken up, it's unsteady, it's unstable, you're going to make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results. So you can get to a point where you see that car coming and you just realize it's unwise to step into the middle of the street. Or you can see that lion over there and you're like, I'm not going anywhere near that lion. It's not wise for me to do that. You don't need fear in order to be able to do that. Because when there's fear, it's like, oh my God, there's a lion. And now you run. And next thing you know, you run and you trigger their instinct. And now they're going to chase after you and kill you. Right? So your fear is going to motivate unwise decision making. But when your mind is calm and steady and stable, you can make wise decisions. You're like, whoa, there's a lion over there. They don't even see me. You know what? I'm just going to slowly back away, right? You can start making wise decisions, but you can't do that when your mind's all shaken up. So you don't need the fear in order to protect this being, because you have wisdom to be able to make wise decisions, to not get into a situation where this being is going to meet with unwholesome consequences. So the fear isn't actually helping you, but that's what you're used to operating through now. But what the Buddha is teaching you is this better way of life to now operate through wise decision making, not through this emotion of fear or any of these other emotions. You know, some places they think about emotion as a good thing, right? But emotion isn't doing anything beneficial for you. It's just shaking up your mind. And then sometimes when we talk about eliminating these emotions, people think like, oh, is enlightenment just like numb? You just like kind of like, you know, mundane. And the answer is no, that's not what enlightenment is at all. But oftentimes people think that when we talk about getting rid of these conditioned feelings. The enlightened mind is bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted, but it's focused and concentrated and relaxed and calm, and you're able to make wise decisions where the mind's not shaken up. This unenlightened mind over here, you can only be happy in limited situations where certain conditions are being met. That's limiting your happiness. It's like sabotaging your ability to be happy, because the mind is like, if this is true, 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 then I will be happy. It's like, if my mom and dad does this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if I have this much money in my bank account, if I have this type of house, this type of car, then I'll be happy. Right? So your happiness actually shrinks in the unenlightened state. You're sabotaging your ability to be happy because of these cravings, desires, attachments, because all those things can't be true permanently. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is how to get beyond this, where your mind can just be happy all the time, where it can be joyful and cheerful and uplifted. And now it can be steady and calm. And now you can make wise decisions where you're not getting in situations where, there's potential danger for this being. And that's what you can do as a human being. But as an animal, they can't do that because they don't have the ability to cultivate their consciousness to that level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Yeah, I realized that I sometimes have fear when I'm passing by a group of people. Maybe they're a little bit loud, drinking alcohol, so they seem to be maybe into unwholesome things.
Mm-hmm.
I see a rising of fear. Or if I'm just sat somewhere eating, and behind me were sitting a few people from the West, seem to be a little bit harsh, maybe, and I feel a little bit this fear also, because they was sitting in my back, and I didn't feel very comfortable in my body. So I think it's good to sit in these situations and get to be comfortable, right?
Yeah, that's what you would like to do, is you would like to expose your mind to those kinds of things. And that's what's going to help you to eliminate your craving. Sometimes what we do here as part of this talk is that if you guys have certain fears that you would like to get help with, like what you just did, is said, hey, here's my fear. I think this is what I should do to be able to get rid of it. Is this the way to do it, then you can get that confirmation or you can get that help. Or sometimes people say, I have this fear and I have no idea how to expose the mind to that. Can you help me? So if you guys have those kinds of questions, you can ask those too. But yeah, that's the way that you would do that, is expose your mind to that. And being here in Chiang Mai, you'll be able to have that opportunity. And right now there's a lot of tourists in the city, so there's lots of opportunities for that. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Boulder, you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, maybe not, but about like fear relating to your own karma. You know, I've done this. I've robbed a bank. I've killed some close relative, something terrible,
Mm-hmm.
and I know bad
Mm-hmm.
karma.
Yeah.
And the results of past actions and things like this. Living in this.
Yeah, the way that you eliminate this is you're going to eliminate it by understanding what the natural law of karma is, and then as unwholesome karma is coming back to you, you extinguish it. So what I'm describing here, it works in about 95% of the situations that you can expose your mind to it. There's some situations where it's just things are just going to happen. You're not going to be able to expose your mind to it, like a car accident, right? I wouldn't advise you to go out and get into a car accident in order to expose your mind to this. Right? There's other ways for you to be able to experience the elimination of fear. That's where the Eightfold Path comes in. Cutting off and letting go, training your mind with breathing mindfulness, meditation with generosity, all those things you learned on Monday. You do that and you build up your practice. And now the mind needs to be developed for a consistent long-term period. The Buddha refers to this as maturing in release, that the mind needs to mature and mature and mature with development on the Eightfold Path, using all those individual factors. And then over time, your mind will let go. So if somebody has done harmful things in the past and they have fear of what's going to come back to them, then they just are going to need to learn the Eightfold Path and all these teachings, so that now as things are coming back to them, then they train their mind to extinguish that unwholesome results of what's coming back to them. And now this is what will eliminate the fear, because eventually you'll get to a point where you extinguish all your unwholesome karma and there's only wholesome karma coming back to you. You're not experiencing any more unwholesome karma, that there's only wholesome things coming back to you. And they'll be able to see that for multiple years. They're only experiencing wholesome results in their life. And that's from building up your practice to the Eightfold Path and then practicing it that way for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. Do you have another question? Yeah, I saw you grabbing the mic earlier, I think. Yeah.
I just have a follow-up question in terms of like the fear. Like what that, like if we remove the fear, like our reaction to something will be that slower. Cause like that was original my thinking. For example, like a car coming, if I have the fear, I can just like avoid immediately.
Yeah.
But like if I don't have a fear, I will be standing there. Oh, watch what is coming to me. Okay, it's hitting me. Would that happen, or actually the mind still know how to react?
Yeah. So what you're training your mind to do is not to react, but instead to respond to the situations that are around you. As an unenlightened being, your mind will be caught up in all kinds of thoughts, and you'll be thinking about any number of different things, and you'll find yourself stepping into the street unaware that there's a car coming. And now, yeah, you're reacting out of your fear. But as an enlightened being, you're going to be well aware of your mind. You're not going to be lost in thoughts. You're going to be very conscious, moving to this higher consciousness, and you're going to be making 100% wise decisions. So you're going to make sure that you look, and now you're going to cross the street in a wise way, where in the unenlightened state, you don't do that. It's kind of like, wow, look at that building over there. That looks really beautiful, right? Sometimes tourists might do this, like, wow, that looks really cool. And next thing you know, they're in the middle of the street, right? you wouldn't do that as an enlightened being because your mind's not longing, yearning, and craving to look at that building. You understand, like right now in the present moment, I'm practicing singleness of mind, and you're going to pay attention to crossing the street because your mind's been refined to practice concentration where you're doing just one thing at a time, singleness of mind. So you're not going to find yourself in a situation as an enlightened being where you've stepped into the street and there's an actual car coming and now you need to react. Instead, you're making wise decisions to ensure that you're only stepping into the street when it would be wise to do so. But as an unenlightened being, you don't have that level of consciousness that you'll sometimes step into the street when it would be unwise to do so. So you're training your mind to not react because usually the first reaction in a certain situation is unwise. Like when you get angry or frustrated or sad, however you react in that situation is usually an unwise decision. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is not react to situations, but instead respond to them and respond through your wisdom. And that's why having your mind calm and peaceful, you'll be able to now respond through that wisdom. And you won't find yourself in these kinds of situations as you're training your mind more and more. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome. You have a question? Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the fear of death. And I was wondering, because I don't know, I don't fear like the pain, but I fear more the feeling of not living the things and the situation that I wanted to live in my whole life. So to, I don't know, like waste my life not living them. Like, I don't know, if I would die at 30, I would feel like bad not to live things that I would have liked to. And how can I do to eliminate that fear?
It's the same thing with the contemplation of death. It's like imagine in your mind that you've died earlier than what you expected, and then train your mind that you have to let go of all these things that your mind was longing, yearning to do in this life, and train your mind that you're moving past that and allowing your mind to let go. And now, as you get more and more peacefulness, then in this life, you just live a really good life and you'll see that you'll have a really wonderful life and you'll be able to do those things. But you would like to train your mind to let go, where you're not longing, yearning, and wanting and craving those things. And again, sometimes when I talk about this, that the mind's craving and longing, yearning, and chasing after things, and the mind's being trained to let go, sometimes people think that their mind's going to swing to the other side and now they're going to be dull and lazy and lethargic, because the unenlightened mind can see these two things really clearly. But that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to come to the middle and gradually pursue your goals, objectives, and interests through wise decision making, not to be over here chasing, but also not being over here where the mind's dull and lethargic. So letting go of something as a craving, desire, attachment doesn't mean that you'll never do that thing. So let's just say that you aspire to go to the Philippines, and that's something that you've always wanted to do, and you're longing, yearning to do that. And if you died prior to being able to do that, your mind would still have that longing, yearning. So you would like to imagine that in your mind as you're doing this contemplation of death. In training your mind to let go of this longing, yearning to go to the Philippines, now that someone's been trained to eliminate their fear, it doesn't mean that you don't ever go to the Philippines. That's not what it means to train your mind to let go. What it means is you train your mind to let go of the longing, yearning, and basing your inner feelings on whether you get that thing or not. So there's two ways to eliminate a craving, desire, attachment. There's cutting it off and letting it go, which normally involves distancing your mind from the object that it's craving. But the other way to eliminate a craving is to actually fulfill it. So that's what you're going to end up probably doing, because you seem pretty young, that if you train your mind to eliminate this fear of death and imagine that you've died pretty young, well, now when you eliminate that, now you can actually live your life and go out into the world and do the things that you're truly interested in doing. So if somebody was really interested in going to the Philippines, they could cut that off and let it go. Like, I don't have money. There's no way I can travel to the Philippines. It's just not possible, right? And you can train your mind to let that go mentally. And then there's another approach, is that someone could just go to the Philippines and check it out and spend some time there. And now you eliminate your craving and longing, yearning for going to the Philippines. But then you need to watch over your mind, because now it might want to go to Tokyo and Beijing and, Hanoi or whatever, Vietnam or Saigon or whatever those cities are called. I don't know those cities in Vietnam very well. But anyway, you understand that the mind can long and yearn for the next one and the next one and the next one. That's what craving will do. It's like an unquenchable thirst. So you can do this contemplation of death, train your mind to let go of this fear that you didn't get to do the things that you were really wanting to do. And then as your mind has let that go and you've trained your mind to let go, now you can actually just go do those things and enjoy it, but just watch over your mind that you're not basing your feelings on it. Because if you get really happy and excited, for example, of going to the Philippines, well, if you get to go, you'll be happy and excited. But then when you need to leave, you'll be sad and frustrated. Or if you show up to the airport and your flight's delayed or canceled, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. So if we allow the mind to have conditioned pleasant feelings, then the painful ones are going to be coming right after that. So you need to learn how to train your mind to enjoy the things that you're doing in the middle way, without getting conditioned pleasant feelings, so your mind doesn't swing back and forth. And this is what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the Eightfold Path, is how to learn how to enjoy what it is that you're doing, thoroughly have fun at what you're doing, but just don't cling to it and wanting it to be permanent. And then that's where your mind can be protected, where you won't experience painful feelings. So like when I spend time with you guys, I thoroughly enjoy being here every single day, spending time with you guys. But it's impermanent. At the end of the day, done, go home, right? I enjoy driving my car to my house, even when I'm in traffic. It's wonderful driving the car. And then when I get home, I enjoy spending time with my son. And then when it's time to go to bed, I enjoy that, right? And then when I'm sitting there by myself in the house all by myself, I enjoy that too, right? So you can enjoy every single aspect of your life, but you understand that it is impermanent and you don't crave for it to be permanent, where what the unenlightened mind's going to do is it's going to crave for all these things to be permanent. And then when it's over, you don't like it. So you can train your mind this way, that these things are impermanent and this life is impermanent. The idea of getting this whole list of things accomplished that you like to accomplish, that may or may not happen. And you can train your mind that that's okay. And I'll just enjoy the things that I'm doing and enjoy why I'm doing it. And then when it's over, it's done. And you move on to the next thing. And that's what the Eightfold Path is going to help you to do, because that's the best place to get started, is with the Eightfold Path. So any other questions that you guys have? No other questions? I don't see any online either. Okay. So what I'm going to do then is it's 10:30. We can take our mid-morning break here. When we come back at 20 minutes from now, which would be 10:50, we're going to discuss this next topic, where you guys can learn about this being of God, because sometimes people think that the Buddha rejected God, or people say he denied the existence of God. This isn't actually true. The Buddha taught about this being. So I'm going to help you to understand about this being, of how to get to enlightenment with a relationship with this being, but you're going to need to understand some things related to that. Or if you're not interested in having a relationship with this being, I'll teach you how to get to enlightenment that way too, because it's not God that determines whether you get to enlightenment. You can get to enlightenment either with a relationship with this being or without one. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you guys afterwards around 10:50. Okay? All right. Thank you guys.